So what I want to talk about today is the dictionary definition of feminism. Should we use it? Should we not use it? Is it adequate? Let's discuss. As someone who discusses feminism, social justice, the like on the internet, I often run into conversations with people who don't necessarily share the same ideological leanings as I do. But I find that a lot of problems that arise when I am talking to someone who is politically opposite or, just shares a differing opinion with me is that we're using different definitions for the same word. And this comes up a lot, for example, in discussions of racism, where we're using two different definitions of the word racism. They're using the dictionary definition of racism, which usually is along the lines of being prejudiced or discriminating against someone based solely on race.
Yes, and there's nothing really inherently wrong about that definition of racism. It's accurate and it fits.
Where I use a sociological definition that I personally find to be a lot more in depth, it usually takes into consideration power dynamics and the legal history of race and the way that race has been classified and societal systems and things like that. So it's not just isolating racism to be a person-to-person encounter where, anyone can be equally discriminated against based on race.
Oh, I gotcha. So what you are essentially saying is that you have conveniently interpreted a different definition of racism to fit your narrative in order to win an argument against those who have opposing ideas, ones that contrast from you so much. So you have altered the definition of racism. Racism alone is about race. That is all it's about. It's not specifically entitled to social structure, power, or any of those sort of things, or history in the past. If a black person owns a white slave, that is racism. It is discrimination based on race. Now, racism can apply to a social structure because a social structure can be racist. Government can be racist. Having power over a different race can be racist. It is prejudice, it is power over a certain race, but racism alone is simply just based on race. There's no mental gymnastics to make that definition not accurate. What you are doing is you are cherry picking a bunch of different things to completely overshadow the fact that a person of color or someone who you deem to be on a lower social status than you can be racist. You are denying that fact. You are working your way around it to avoid having that conversation. That way your political and social ideology can never be wrong. It is intellectually dishonest and it's kind of pathetic. Long story short, racism is racism no matter what sort of power structure you may have, what kind of government you may have. You don't get to change the definition to fit your narrative. We are using the definition, the dictionary definition of racism because that is what racism is. And as I said earlier, it can include social structure because social structures, social constructs, society, governments can be racist. It is the same tactic that you guys use when talking about crime, when talking about black on black crime. An actual argument that I heard from somebody I was debating with was that black on black crime essentially does not exist because crime is interracial. He changed the definition of crime, or used a specific definition of crime, to debunk the way, or to twist the conversation around so that he won. He twisted the definition of crime. What you can say, if you want to be intellectually honest, is say, well, interracial crime is one thing, and then racial crime within the same community is also one thing. You can sit there and say crime is interracial, and then you win the argument. It's intellectually dishonest. It's the reason things have, you have the definition, like racism, discrimination or prejudice based on race. That's vague, and that's what racism is. And then a murder is the act of killing somebody unjustly. Rape is unconsensual intercourse or sex, but you have different categories of each thing. You have first degree murder, second degree murder, third degree murder, you have an accomplice to a murder, and then you have accidental homicide or vehicular homicide. side, and then you have statutory rape. You have I don't know, well, rape is forced, but you have different degrees of sexual assault, of rape, of murder, and with crime. And what they are, it's not to use it to overshadow another specific entity of crime or murder or whatever. It's talking about a specific type of murder. So changing the definition of something to win the conversation is intellectually dishonest.
The simplistic definition of feminism as simply being for gender equality, or do you think a more specific term, like identifying specifically as an intersectional feminist rather than basic ass feminist?
So what you are saying is that fighting for gender equality is no longer what you are trying to do. That fighting for the equality of the sexes is no longer sufficient enough for you to get you through the upcoming days. Is that what you are saying? Because that is exactly what it sounds like you are saying.
Because there are people who identify as feminists who don't believe that trans women deserve rights or that they're real women. And there are feminists who don't care about women of color or issues of racism and believe that we should only talk about gender issues and ignore any racial issues that might intersect.
Okay, see, there lies a problem, because you are putting two words together. You're putting racism, which is about prejudice or belief that your race is superior over another race or something along those lines. Prejudice, it's discrimination based on race. And then you're applying feminism, which has the word fem for feminine and female for girls, essentially, and you're applying that to racism. You're combining a word that means both. You're trying to create some weird hybrid. Racism is suffice enough for racial issues, just like feminism is suffice enough for female equality issues. And yes, some people don't include transsexuals in feminism, rights for transsexuals, because that is an LGBT community issue. That is trans rights issues. Because men who are females, you can put quotes all you want, but men who are transitioning into a female are not female biologically. They can mentally think they are a female, and that's a whole nother issue. That is fine. But based on their chromosomes, an XY person cannot become an XX person. They can do things that can help them develop breast tissue. They can do things that help change their voice, help change the way they think. They can do whatever cosmetic surgery or treatment that they want to make themselves look like their desired sex, but they are not real. Trans issues, or T issues, I should say, is a completely separate issue when you're talking about feminism and racism. All three of them are different words, are different movements, and they can intersect, and that's fine. But don't start making feminism be about race, because it's not. You have racism for that.
I think my ideological beliefs are very different from those perspectives, but if we only use the definition of feminism for fighting for equality, then it's not very useful. So maybe we need to be more specific in what type of feminist we are, or, what type of feminist theory we're discussing.
You see, I know I'm talking a lot about semantics here and not actual ideologies or beliefs, but you kind of have to get on the same page as people like her, and I don't mean that as an insult, although subconsciously I probably do, and that was probably just a low-key insult. But the word that you are looking for to describe somebody who is about gender equality, racial equality, and, I'm all for those things, but not to the extent that you are. But the word you are looking for, and the way that you should actually describe it, is you're not just a feminist. Racism does apply to feminism. It can cross over, it can intersect, like most things can. Two things can be true at the same time in a society. Sure, a female can be oppressed, and she can be oppressed more if she is a minority race. It doesn't matter what color you are or what type of minority you are. So yes, white people can be oppressed too, especially in non-white countries, or especially in a country where the white population is declining in comparison. Anyway, just to get it over with, the word that we were looking for, as I began to say, is a social justice warrior. That is what your movement is. You are combining feminism with racism, with pay equality, and everything that you can that belongs in the victimhood category is what you are doing, and that is the social justice movement.
Not really sure how I feel about it, so sometimes it's helpful to just vomit my ideas at a camera and get some feedback from you guys.
Vomit. That is an accurate description. Bravo. I hope this video has shined a light on the current situation that we are in with social justice warriors and debating things with them. We have gone so far off the beaten path that we're no longer playing semantics about what words mean, about what the definition of words are. It's ultra semantics, and it is semantics in a way that twists definitions of words that you are using, of BuzzFeed words, so you can win an argument. Somebody gives you an opposing argument and you go, no, but that's not what I'm talking about. See, this word to me means this, and that's what we're talking about. So then you can no longer refute it. You probably can, just like you can refute the fact that there is a social racism, a social structure of racism in this country. I mean, we had a black president, for Christ's sakes. But we are so far down this hole. I'm a pessimist, so, I'm a deputy downer, so just, I don't know, you don't have to take what I say to heart, you can take what I say with a grain of salt. I'm obviously biased towards my ideas, my beliefs, but when you watch a video like this, where she tries to say that feminism is also racism and trans rights and the same thing, yeah, okay, whatever. You argue about the definition of words so much, and you're not even on the same page when you do argue about racism, sexism, feminism, and all that, to the point where you're not even arguing the same thing anymore. You're projecting, it's the individual projecting their own beliefs and own ideology into a single word. It's almost hopeless. But it doesn't mean that we can't win this. And obviously, I think my political ideology, my social ideology is correct. Yeah, I'm biased. Have a good day.